Hannah.
And I'm Matt Hannah.
And this is Horror Hour with the Hannahs,
where we talk about movies based on books that don't have an author.
In the wise words of Bodies, today's episode is a podcast about hanging out with your smartest and funniest friend. So we are joined here today by our friend Kiana.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for the kind intro.
Well, thank you for joining us.
I've never once said that about any other guest. You are very special.
Well, I'm honored.
So Kiana's been one of our friends from college, so it was super fun to finally get her on the podcast. And we are discussing one of our mutual interests, which is the Harry Potter universe.
Which we're counting as horror because they got witches, which is a big complaint I have with these books because wizards are gender neutral. Why are they wizards and witches? Witches aren't even equivalent to wizards. They're completely different. It could be like witches and warlocks maybe, but warlocks are also gender neutral. What's going on here?
Well, I think there's a lot of complaints that we can make about the author of the series, She Who Shall Not Be Named.
True.
So, you know, there's a lot of problems in these, not just that. But Kiana, just some intro questions for you. We'll go through 3 questions, all 3 of us, to see where our preferences are with these films, books, etc. So what is your Hogwarts house?
So I feel like I would love to say Gryffindor, but realistically, I'd have to say Slytherin. I mean, the first ever Pottermore quiz that I took placed me there. And, you know, that was a pretty legit quiz at the time when I was like, 11 or 12? Yeah, and I just don't feel like I identify with either Ravenclaw or Hufflepuff or the bravado of Gryffindor. I mean, obviously there are things wrong with Slytherin. Do not condone what racism. A lot of them stand for. But it was more like the resourcefulness and ambition that I felt like I identified with.
Well, you have another Slytherin on this podcast, and it's not me.
It's me. I am very much a Slytherin as well. Definitely very ambitious, clever, like that side of Slytherin. But again, yeah, there are certain things that those characters represent in the books that I certainly don't agree with those ideals. So sometimes when I tell people I am Slytherin, I'm like, ooh. But
I think it's funny.
But yeah, like the traits that are positive, I very much identify with, and that is also what I got on Pottermore. Kind of, yeah.
Yeah, it's fine. And Hannah will argue with me, but I've gotten Gryffindor on most of the quizzes I've taken. I'm close, Hufflepuff close second.
I think you might be a Hufflepuff, but in certain contexts, I can understand Gryffindor. I just think in like social contexts, you're a Hufflepuff. So.
This is like worse than astrology. And I kind of like astrology.
I see Hannah's point. I can see you kind of go both ways.
There's only 4.
Well, some people are like a very big mix of both. You're just a Huffledore.
Okay.
Or a Griffin Puff.
Well, I never read these books, so.
Oh, you never read them?
No. I read the first one.
Yeah.
Like recently.
Yeah, I tried to get him
I started
to read
reading the second one. I liked it, but I just was like, I don't know. I don't read a lot. I did start reading last night.
Matt does not know how to read.
I definitely know how to read.
We've been through this so many times on this podcast that Matt might actually be illiterate. And this is another example. He couldn't even finish a children's book.
I started reading Slaughterhouse-Five again, which is a very famous Kurt Vonnegut book. So, suck it.
So jot that down.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a little more complicated than the Harry Potter series.
I've read it. Yeah. It was 1,200 pages. Okay. That's my claim to fame on this podcast.
Yeah. It's the only book he's read in like the last 17 years.
Yeah. Well, it's like 4 books in one. So.
I think I can name how many books you've read since we've been dating.
It's not good. It's not good. Dune, and that's all I can think of.
Game of Thrones, the first one.
True. I read the first Game of Thrones. Girl with the Dragon Tattoo.
Not while we were together.
Oh, shit. That wasn't. Yikes. No, it definitely was because I read Game of Thrones the same summer.
Oh, okay.
I was at the pool. Just working the gate.
Okay. All right, sure. Well, let's move forward from that. What is your favorite character in the series? Or characters?
Should I go first?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I'd probably say my favorite character is Neville. I love a good underdog story. And I think Neville presents a really nice contrast to all of Harry's more grand acts of bravery, where you get to kind of see the slow transformation of Neville from a scared little kid who has so much self-doubt and insecurities into one of the most confident, brave, and capable leaders during the darkest time in the series. And I love the moment when he pulls the sword out of Gryffindor hats, because while it was no surprise when Harry did it in the second book, it was kind of a full circle moment for Neville and a really nice way to conclude his arc.
I agree with everything you just said. Neville is definitely a sweet bean, but he does have some of the best growth throughout the series. And it is kind of a shame that we don't get all of that context in the films. It's one of the few faults that I would give one of the films we're going to talk about, because that book has the backstory and they just kind of left it out of the movies, which I understand why. But yeah, I think he has a really great growth arc. And when I was first reading and watching, the Deathly Hallows, I was like, yes, King, get it, because he deserves it more than anyone.
I know, and obviously there are so many great characters, but you kind of meet them when they're already in their prime, so it's nice to see someone who kind of started from the bottom.
Mm-hmm. I would say my favorite characters, and I don't know if I can articulate it quite as well as you did, but I would say my favorite characters are Lupin and Sirius. I just think Sirius has been through so much trauma, and in general has kept a more positive attitude and is still willing to fight for what's right. I know he kind of has somewhat of a juvenile mindset because he was put in prison and at a very young age. But I think ultimately he still is a hero in the books, and his passing is really sad. And also Gary Oldman is so charismatic that how could you not like? And then Lupin, I just kind of love him. I think he's one of the only professors that we see that actually gives a shit about anyone and actually tries to foster talent in his students, no matter who they are. So yeah, my sweet beans, my marauders.
Well, I was also thinking Sirius Black, and I haven't read the book, so you have to remember there's only movies, but I'm going to say that I think my favorite character is Snape.
Interesting. There are some people on the internet who would hate you for that.
Yeah. Why?
Well, there's a lot more in the books about some of the really shitty things that he's done. I mean, he's certainly, you see in the movies, that he abuses children, but
it's funny.
I think it's... But yeah,
hopefully that one doesn't get you flagged.
No, yeah. It's fine. We talked about children blowing up in an episode before, and how we wish that we saw it on camera.
Yeah, I just think in the books, it shows a lot more abusive children, and he's kind of incel behavior.
We're not talking about the books. I'm talking about Alan Rickman specifically.
Well, that's what's hard. It's Alan Rickman is Alan Rickman, so you want to love him.
The real answer is probably Sirius Black, but because of Gary Oldman and because my favorite movie has a lot of him.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Severus Snape's such a good time in the movies, and he's there always. There's always some bullshit going on. Mm-hmm. And I kind of like seeing a character that is just actually completely despicable kind of still get this arc to I think maybe somewhat quarter redeem himself.
Yeah, I kind of see him kind of like an anti-hero a little bit.
He's actually, yeah, okay. I was going to say an anti-villain, but I don't know. I don't know what I would call him.
Yeah, he's something in that category. He's not all good, he's not all bad.
I'm fully basing it off of movie version, and so I just like Alan Rickman. Also, Alan Rickman is a big part of one of my favorite scenes in the entire series, so I'll save that for later, though.
Okay. Last question. This doesn't apply to Matt because he hasn't read them, but do you have a favorite book in the series, Kiana?
So this was a hard one because I feel like what my favorite book was when I initially read them has changed. I did a bit of a reread during COVID. Not necessarily every part, just kind of parts I liked. So I would say when I was younger, it was Goblet of Fire because I love the whole competition aspect. Obviously, that's kind of when shit gets real at the end. But as an adult, I'd have to say Order of the Phoenix has kind of climbed its way to the top. And I don't know if that's an unpopular opinion or not, because I feel like a lot of people are like, that's when Harry's so angry and mean all the time. But I feel like that book has elicited a more genuine emotional reaction from me between really well-written villains like Umbridge, because obviously she is like an incredible villain. She really gets under your skin in a way that I feel like Voldemort doesn't always, because he's just this big bad that, you know, you don't really know many Voldemorts in your life.
Well, without reading the book, I will say it makes sense to me because I think that one is one of the most narratively interesting of all of them, especially because I feel like it takes a step in a different direction from what you were seeing, at least with 1, 2, 3, 4.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I also really appreciated Sirius's death. Like, while I love Sirius and that was obviously a tragedy, I feel like that was one of the most emotional deaths in the whole series, especially in the aftermath between Dumbledore and Harry, which I don't feel like is portrayed super well in the films, but in the book it's a really emotional scene that just is really heartfelt, and that is the one death that I feel like because of that scene makes me sadder than any of the other ones.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I do really like Order of the Phoenix, and I like how it portrays Harry's trauma after what happened in Goblet of Fire. But I would say my favorite is probably Half-Blood Prince, mostly because I do like the deep dive into Voldemort and what might have made him who he is. And I think it sets up the final act of the story really, really well. Unfortunately, we don't really get that set up in the movie, but book-wise, I really enjoy it.
Okay, I was between that one too, but honestly, I find Harry more annoying in that one than the fifth because I was so tired of hearing about Malfoy being a Death Eater.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's like, Harry, shut the fuck up. We get it.
Yeah, like I know he was right, but that doesn't mean I wanted to read it every other page.
I know. Yeah, he's kind of a butthead in some of the books, but I definitely see him, as much as people don't like extra sassy, depressed Harry in number 5, I'm like, this is trauma, Harry, so shut up. And I get where he's coming from, so I don't really have a problem with him being kind of sassy or sad.
It's not just trauma, it's that the entire government doesn't believe him when he's
being gaslit by literally everyone.
Wizard Hitler has returned to kill the people he loves, and no one well, it's not they don't believe him, they purposely say he's a liar, and then his buddy who protects him leaves, leaving him with an actual Hitlerite as principal. So like, what are you gonna do?
Yeah. So that's enough.
I'd be pretty angry too.
Yeah, I would be pretty angry also.
Yeah.
Well, that's enough on some of our, basic get to know you questions. Before we get into the films, we do want to say that obviously the author of the books has made a lot of comments in the last several years that we disagree with vehemently, especially with what she has said about the transgender community. We stand with the transgender and the community and the entire LGBTQ community. We enjoy these films for the hard work put in the creatives working on this series, but ultimately we do not support, the bullshit that she's been spouting. So we just wanted to make that clear. Disclaimer.
Neither do the actors in the movie.
Yeah. Many of the actors have, spoken out against her, which I really appreciate, especially people who like Daniel Radcliffe, who people say that he owes his career to her. So I really respect that he is brave enough to speak out and continues to do a lot of work for the LGBTQ community. I know he's done a lot with the Trevor Project, I believe. So,
hell yeah,
we love
she's kind of brain dead. So, but yes, we love Daniel Radcliffe. Sorry to cut you off, Kiana.
So, some background on the films. There are 8 total films for 4 total books.
4 books.
Nope, 7. Sorry. 7 books, 8 movies. Deathly Hallows is split into part 1 and part 2. There are 2 writers total on all of the films. Steve Kloves wrote all of them, but Order of the Phoenix, which was written by Michael Goldenberg. The films span from the years of 2001 and 2011, so they were coming out over a 10-year span, and they have 4 directors total. There's Sorcerer's Stone and Chamber of Secrets, which are directed by Chris Columbus. Prisoner of Azkaban is directed by Alfonso Cuarón. Goblet of Fire is directed by Mike Newell. And Order of the Phoenix, Half-Blood Prince, Deathly Hallows Part 1 and Part 2 are all directed by David Yates. So let's get into our ranking of the series. So we're going to start with our least favorite movie out of all of them, number 8. Matt, can you get us started with your least favorite? Also, can you stop looking at my notes, you little cheater?
Oh, my bad. I didn't bring my notes up.
He loves to cheat off me.
Oh, I just want to see where we're going next. Okay, I did this ranking yesterday. My least favorite is Deathly Hallows Part 1.
Can you tell us why?
Yeah, I think it is ugly looking. I think that it's half a story with no climax except for Dobby's death. Sad. I really dislike all the time they spend in the woods. And I think that it looks like a bunch of other action movies at the time, especially when they run through the woods, having weird spells fly around. And that's like a scene that really sticks out in my head is like the sum up of that movie is it just feels bland to me.
Mm-hmm.
I think also anytime you're going to leave Hogwarts to go hang out in some ugly woods, it is going to make the movie a little tougher. And again, it's half a story. That's, I think, really, it's hard to, everyone struggles cutting movies into part 1 or part 2, except for Denis Villeneuve.
With Dune.
Yeah, with Dune. Because it is half a story. You really have to like make changes for a climax to feel climactic and for a 5-act or 3-act structure to work.
Yeah, that wasn't my bottom pick, but it was in the lower half of my rankings for similar reasons.
Me too. So Kiana, what's your 8th place?
I went with Half-Blood Prince. I feel like this is the one that I've rewatched the least. I saw it in theaters when it came out, but I mean, part of my issue with it is just boring. Like, it's focused on relationships that, frankly, weren't really that interesting to begin with. There was not great chemistry between any of the main couples. Obviously, I feel like it's been talked about a ton. The Ginny and Harry had zero chemistry, not just throughout this movie, but the whole series. And because of all the character changes to Hermione and Ron, I feel like you walk away from this movie being like, why would Hermione like Ron? That makes no sense.
It didn't make sense in the book either, right?
It makes more sense in the book.
I feel like the whole thing was written for Harry and Hermione to be together, and then she was like, oh, let me just change this at the last second from what I have read. You guys actually read the book, so maybe I shouldn't talk about it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think relationships were ever the strong point of the book, at least romantic relationships. They were always kind of left a lot to be desired. And also they had random scenes in the movies, like the burning of the barrow, which never happened in the books. First of all, it had no consequences because immediately in the next movie, they're back in the burrow, no problems, never mentioned ever again.
Yeah. No, I agree. The fact that they have that happen and then don't set up any consequences to it is really dumb. And the scene itself just like doesn't look good. It doesn't make you feel any particular way. Like it really adds literally
I don't
nothing.
even remember what you're talking about.
Yeah, that's
because it's so unmemorable. That's why.
So I'm gonna. There are definitely people on the internet who are gonna be like, Hannah, what the fuck? But my 8th place is Deathly Hallows Part 2. I feel like they just took a lot of liberties with this one that I despise. I would say the biggest issue is when Voldemort dies. The point is kind of like at this point in the story is that he's just any other man. He went to all these lengths to be immortal, but then he just died like everybody else. But that's not what happens in the movie. So thematically, it just doesn't quite make sense. And it doesn't look good having him turn to ash and like float away like garbage. It really just like doesn't work for me at all. And I feel like Harry winning doesn't feel as earned in the movie. And there is like missing so much background about the Elder Wand and Draco's wand. And I just think like it's just some lame ass CGI instead of 2 dudes who have like used their brains, or at least Harry's used his brain to get to this point. I also don't like it because I think a lot of character deaths that we've gotten to know throughout the entire series are completely ignored.
They happen off screen.
And it's really
Lupin
dumb.
And what?
Lupin, Tonks, and Fred, like, and all of them die off screen, and they're barely even shown that they're dead.
Hedwig.
And these are, well, Hedwig is in the other movie, dumbass. But yes.
Oh, wait, that's in the yeah, my bad.
So I feel like those are moments that in the book I cried. In the movie, you don't even notice that they're dead. And obviously all of those stories do have an arc in, like, they all have an arc in the films. So why are we just leaving them hanging?
Well,
Yeah.
you should come to me next, because for my 7th worst, I picked The Deathly Hallows Part 2. And I got to
Me
talk
too.
about it. I got to talk about it. Perfect. You guys are going to talk about it from a book standpoint. I'm going to talk about it from a film standpoint, because I haven't read them, as I'll keep saying. I think the issue with this one's similar to the first, though, is that it is half a story. So it doesn't exactly feel right. I think that it is also a pretty ugly looking movie, and it kind of falls into superhero slop by the end with the Battle of Hogwarts, which is a cool idea on paper. But when you have, in all honesty, made a series of movies that are really character driven, with like moments of bombastic like set pieces, to just have this big one that kind of does remove those elements of like character building, other than Neville's amazing scene. It kind of feels like it was all for nothing when it gets to this point. And then we get to see Harry turn into a cop. Bro, like, you could have been so much better. Like, why you got to go? I guess he actually wasn't that good, you know?
Well, they don't establish in the movie that he's a cop now, but in the
my
books,
bad.
yeah.
I mean, Harry knows like 2 spells, so like, would he make the best cop? Maybe not.
So you named your son Albus Severus Potter? Come on now.
I mean, those names
Harry's
are criminal.
Never been smart. Yeah, Harry's never been a smart guy, so it's unsurprising.
That is actually something lovely about this. The writing of this is that Harry's kind of a dumbass.
Yeah.
We love a dumbass leading man. Harry's a himbo.
I mean, he's a little smarter than Ron, but yeah, the two of them are really himboing through the whole series.
They're not muscular either.
No, they're
sharing one
dudes.
brain cell throughout the whole series, I think.
But they're not like
Literally.
as cool as Percy Jackson, who actually has like a disability, you know, if we're talking YA fantasy novels.
Percy's a different breed.
True. I think it's interesting to have it resonate more with disabled kids, but this one's for the British folk, the British dumbasses out there, to just have these 2 fuck ups be the hero. Then you got Hermione. She rules. All right, but that's it. Sorry. That's my rant. Kiana, tell us why you don't like it.
Yeah, so I had it as number 7 as well, for a lot of similar reasons to Hannah, especially surrounding Voldemort's death. I mean, that just made no sense how they were like flying around the castle with their faces merging. What the hell was that? It was so out of place and really took away from the gravity of the final battle. And also talking just about how important it was for Voldemort to die like any other human. I don't appreciate that they had Harry, quote unquote, kill him with nobody watching. I feel like the whole point of the book series is, you know, everyone thought he was dead, but then he was actually back. So I feel like the other people in this world need to see that Voldemort is dead with their own eyes. And the fact that he just disintegrates into dust, like very Avengers Infinity War type, really defeats that messaging and the purpose. So I definitely think that was one of the film's biggest sins. There was also other weird things going on, like why are Ron and Hermione chasing after the snake with the bone of the other snake thing? Like, why would they think that was? Yeah, why would they think that would work?
Also, because Harry told Neville to do it, so it's like, that's not your job, bitches.
See, I don't even remember this. Oh, I also meant to complain about the Horcruxes being not explained and kind of just felt like a bunch of MacGuffins that were just not adding. Or is that the first? Is that the last one?
That's Half-Blood Prince's problem.
Oh, damn.
It starts there. Yeah.
Starts there. True. But I feel like this one had a bunch of like, oh, shit, we got to get all these really quick so we can finish the story. And it's like, again, it's just a character development issue. It's like, we just got to go through the motions instead of actually have this be like an emotional story.
Yes.
Sorry to come back.
Can we talk about Harry snapping the Elder Wand when he has no wand himself? Just tossing it away when in the book he used... Yeah.
Wait, I didn't even know that.
In the book, he uses it to fix his original wand.
He uses it.
But because his wand is snapped, then he gets Draco, so he technically is like the technical owner of Draco's wand. But like, it doesn't work quite as well as his original wand because that wand chose him. So in the book, he uses the Elder Wand to fix his completely snapped original wand. But in the movie, all he does is take the Elder Wand, be like, no one should have this ever again, snap, throw it in the water, and it's also just like silent and weird. Like the way the scene
I do
plays out
remember
that
doesn't
scene
being
look
very
good,
odd.
and it's really
Well,
uncomfortable.
yeah, these movies aren't great looking. These last
No.
two, when there's actually a lot of good looking ones throughout the series.
Mhm.
But
I mean, also right
sorry.
before that scene, you know, they show the aftermath of the Battle of Hogwarts, and people just like don't seem like they really care that much that the biggest villain in their entire lives has just been killed, and
Wizard
they have
Hitler's
victory.
gone.
Yeah, they're just sitting there chilling in the Great Hall room like it's any other day. Then he goes and snaps the Elder Wand.
Yeah, it should definitely be like more of a celebration, and it's just not. And it's not even like relief either. It's just like apathy.
Yeah.
All
right.
My 7th place
Oh,
is.
we didn't even do yours yet.
Yep. My 7th place is Half-Blood Prince. Like Kiana, I think there's way too much focus on the romance, and there is no chemistry, so that sucks. And I think its biggest sin is that it sets up the final 2 films horribly. It brings in the concept of the Horcruxes and some of Voldemort's memories, but we don't actually get a thorough look into the memories, and we don't actually get like a great description of what the Horcruxes are. So I don't understand how the fuck this book or the final 2 movies make sense to anyone who didn't read the book. And that is a huge problem, to have movies that just feel incomplete and incomprehensible. The only reason I don't have this one in last is because the cave scene is incredibly well done, and Dumbledore's death makes me cry. I do think those scenes were done well, so I have to give it to them, but I think pretty much everything up until that point is pretty dog shit.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Kiana talked about that one a bunch, so do we want to go to the next one?
Number 6.
Yep, number 6.
I'm going to go with Deathly Hallows Part 1. You already talked about it a lot, Matt, so I'm not going to harp on it too long. I would say it's not the movie's fault completely that it's too slow. I would give that more to the source material, because the source material is also slow. Dobby's death is really well done. I would say the scene at like the Malfoy Manor onward, Dobby dying, Harry digging the grave, I would say that is all done pretty well. I think it still has the same emotional consequences as it does in the book. So I do think that that is effective, and I did cry. But like you guys said, I think the movie like doesn't look good and doesn't
paced
do
weird.
enough. Yeah.
Do you think that this could have just been done as one movie, but maybe like a 3-hour?
It would have
I
had to
think
be a
so.
long fucking movie, but it
I
could
just
have
think
been.
like you could speed up some of the stuff.
Well, I think if they explain the Horcruxes, if they rewrote 6, you would have to rewrite 6 and kind of chill with some of the romance plot and add more of the actual Horcruxes plot to make the 7th one make sense and speed up the
That
timeline.
makes sense. All right, Matt Hanna hot take right here. I don't actually want this because I don't want that devil to get any more money, but I think that this series would work so well as an animated show, multiple season animated show. Just hear me out.
Aren't they in the process of making the show?
Are they doing that? I thought they were making a Marauder show or something.
No, that has always been talked about, but like never a thing. I think they're doing an actual show,
I wouldn't do it live action.
a
'cause you're
live
never
action
gonna-
show. Yeah.
That's stupid. You're never going to actually match the magic of the way some of these movies look.
Yeah, it's due to hit HBO in 2026
As a
as a live action
do it
show.
animated. That's the same thing I said about Game of Thrones. It would make a really good animated show. It's magical. Whatever. It just looks better drawn. Or
And I
computer
feel like you can't replace some of the teachers. Like at this point, it's ingrained in people's minds. You're not going to
Agreed.
beat it.
I think like of McGonagall, and it's like I see what's her name? Maggie Smith.
Yeah,
Even though I know she's supposed to be younger.
but she's iconic. So yeah, and that's the thing with like, they definitely fucked up with the casting of some of the adults.
They're
Like
way
they're
too old,
all
right?
way too old. But Alan Rickman is a fucking icon, and I think it's kind of a disgrace to have anyone else play that role after Alan Rickman's done.
Adam
it.
Driver can do it.
But Adam Driver could do it. He has the same kind of like vocal,
He's got the look.
and he has the look,
So-
and he's talented.
I will say, if we're just talking about the casting, I do, from my understanding of reading the first book, I feel like it is kind of weird having all the actors as old, because I feel like they're also kind of supposed to be fuck ups and like kind of immature.
Well, the Marauders were supposed to be in their early 20s when James died.
Yeah. But I'm
So
saying
at this point, they should be early 30s.
that's what I'm saying. I feel like the teachers are still supposed to be like immature, like our age almost.
I mean, Snape, yes.
Okay, fine. But I even mean like there are times in the movies where they come across as immature, but they're like grandparent age, and it feels a little weird.
Yeah.
Like especially Maggie Smith.
I don't agree that she
All
comes
right. Well, I
across
think the part where
immature.
I get
No,
really
I
mad
feel like-
when she does. It's one scene when she doesn't let him go on the field trip. I get very angry.
No, I mean, that's directly as written, and I don't have a problem with that
I
because
hate
I
it.
get it because she's just trying to protect him.
I don't
Yeah.
like it.
And I feel like she gave grandmother vibes in the books. I don't
Oh, really?
really remember. Yeah, I don't remember her feeling like super youthful in the books. Do you, Hannah?
I don't think she was supposed to be super young,
Oh,
but
I
I
thought she
definitely
was
don't
supposed
think
to be
she's supposed to be
younger.
old as shit.
Okay.
I think she has black hair in the books,
Yeah.
maybe. Like, she's not elderly.
She's like, okay. Well, my bad.
But
Then,
also,
some of the other teachers.
I don't
then.
know how old Maggie Smith was during filming, but she was also battling breast cancer, which
That
might
was
have
in the
like
later
aged
movies,
her up
but yeah,
too.
true. Okay. Well,
So let's just not do that. So I went into my sixth place being Deathly Hallows Part 1. Who's up next?
I'll go. I
Oh.
have Chamber of Secrets as my sixth place. It is. I still like it, but it's definitely like a slog of a movie. A little too. It's the longest in the entire series.
Mhm.
And it's fine. It's just like I think some of the ones above this have more of a special quality. This could probably get interchanged with Half Blood Prince, though, which will be the one after, and I'm not going to say too much about it. But I feel like it's just a little long, especially for while it's still feeling like a kids movie,
Mhm.
and has some like pacing issues where it really kind of just comes to a standstill. And I'll move on. Someone else can go. Or Kiana, you're number 6.
Yes, I had Deathly Hallows Part 1. I originally was going to place Chamber of Secrets lower, but then I realized I disliked more about the last few movies. I don't want to talk about it too much because I know we've already kind of gone in depth about it. Obviously, can't see anything in the movie. That's a major issue, along with the pacing just being incredibly slow. I will say one good thing about it, though. I love the tale of the three brothers scene. I thought that was a really creative and engaging way to tell that story, and the animation was beautiful. So that I will give the movie props there.
In Harry Potter world, in Universal, there is a puppet show that tells the story, and it's awesome. It was really cool.
Oh,
But
that's
it's
so
taken from
cool.
how it's done in the movie.
I know
yeah.
it's taken from how it's done,
really
but
well.
it's done by like actual puppeteers.
Mhm.
It's probably cooler than it is in the movie for that reason. It's like narrated live. I don't know. I think it's a cool little live show.
Yeah, it is. It's cute.
I mean, do they have Harry Potter puppet pals at Universal, though?
They should.
Oh my god, throwback!
Snape.
Those still have to be on YouTube.
Sever- They
They
definitely
are. I think I saw them during COVID.
Wizard Angst was my favorite.
Is that the one? Oh, I
Yeah,
liked
he's-
Wizard Swears. Is that Wizard Angst?
Wizard
No.
Angst is the one where he's
No,
like
they're-
bashing his head on the.
Wizard Swears is a different one, and that's Dumbledore ends up teaching them some bad words.
That's
and
funny.
Stuff.
I like Snape's
Anyway.
diary.
Yeah. So I'll move on to my number 5 because Matt mentioned this one. I'm going to put Chamber of Secrets in 5th position. I do agree that the length is kind of egregious and drags. It is the longest movie, and it has no fucking right to be the longest movie when it is like the second shortest book. And I think the content itself doesn't add more on screen than the first does. I think it is just trying to capture everything in the book, but it's a film adaptation. It doesn't need to be the exact same. And so I think trying to be too faithful to the book was a hindrance here. Yeah, I just don't think it adds anything that the first one doesn't really have besides a couple new characters like Malfoy and Lockhart. And I would say the end scene with the basilisk is like this huge dramatic scene that goes on really long where he's being chased by the snake. And while I think that scene is scary, like I used to wake up seeing that in the middle of the night. Like if I left my TV on and I woke up to that scene, I'd be horrified, and that happened several times. But at the same time, it didn't need to be that long. Like, we were good, dude, because it takes up like 10 minutes of runtime. Could have just been shorter.
Mhm.
What about you,
Yeah.
Kiana? What's your number 5?
I also had Chamber of Secrets as my number 5, with agreeing with a lot of what you said, the length being the biggest issue. And oh my god, the final battle which feel like is one of the less interesting ones out of all the books. Yeah.
Yeah.
Went on for way too long. Like seeing him run around in the drains and just hide, like nobody needed to see 10 minutes of that.
But what I will say is young Voldemort was a cutie.
Credit due.
Yeah.
And I gotta say, love the introduction to Dobby, and it's low-key hilarious in the end when Malfoy tries to kill Harry right outside of Dumbledore's office. So, although that's not quite what happens in the book, always appreciated that.
Yeah, all of the Dobby stuff is so cute. So, like, I love Dobby. He's such an annoying little shitbag, but he's such a cutie. So sweet.
I just realized that we're all going to have the exact same bottom four. That's
Yeah.
crazy because my number 5 is Half-Blood Prince.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the only reason I have it higher than you guys is because I like all the lore stuff with like the memory. Oh, wait, no, that's the 7th one. Damn it.
No,
Which
they
is
do
the
the
one where
memories.
Where's the one where they do the
in-
tier memories?
It's in the 6th one. They just don't do as many,
that where-
and I don't think they don't explain it well enough.
Well,
but yes,
I think I enjoy those scenes. That's where we learn about young Voldemort, right? In the 6th one?
yeah, we just don't
Yes.
get enough to, I think, like make it
Okay.
make sense.
Well, I guess, again, as someone who didn't read them, I enjoy these scenes. I think it's cool to see something a little blast from the past. And I think that that's kind of why it stands out in my head is like, oh, that was a pretty cool movie. Where I know you said it's a terrible adaptation.
Mhm.
I also think the Dumbledore getting killed scene is really good.
Yeah,
And you're right, the cave scene is like, I feel like they really I can't remember the actor's name who plays Dumbledore, but he really gets to shine there.
Mhm.
I don't need to say too much more. I think that's just a little bit why I have it higher is maybe it's one that just like I'm a little more fond of thinking back on. But it's also the one that I would say is the hardest for me to remember when I think about it.
Mm.
It's kind of
Wait.
funny that the reason we had it ranked so low is because it strayed too far from the book, whereas like we're like Chamber of Secrets did too much with the book.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
wouldn't even say like, yeah, it strays really far from the book, but I think not even that as much is just like, I don't understand how Matt knows what the fuck is happening past that point. Like, it doesn't make sense.
Man, I saw these in theaters as a kid. I don't know.
I think you only know because I've explained it to you.
Maybe. I don't
So
know.
I think
I'm
that's
pretty
just
sure
like a
I saw
fault
like
of the-
all of these movies in theaters and I didn't even read the books. It was just the thing.
Damn, yeah.
This was the franchise before there was a franchise. And you know, most of these movies are still like this franchise through and through is actually pretty good.
Yes.
Even though we're going to complain about some stuff, at least comparison to like other franchises, it's kind of a
Yes.
miracle that they were able to have 8 like serviceable films.
Yeah, I know.
Especially when you look at like Pirates of the Caribbean that really falls off. The thing is, I don't know if any of these ever, well, one of these movies gets to the height of the first Pirates of the Caribbean, but the rest do not.
Yeah. Well, none
Okay.
of the other parts of the Caribbean get to the height of the first one either, so it's fine.
True. Yep.
Kiana, do you want to give us your number 4?
Yeah, this is where I place Goblet of Fire.
Me too.
Me too.
Oh my God.
Whoa. This is crazy. Well, tell us why, and then we'll
Yeah,
talk.
I know. There were a few things that were a little odd about this movie, but overall, like I felt like it was a pretty solid adaptation. I've always enjoyed the introduction of Mad Eye Moody. I don't know what the actor's name is, but I think he does a great
Brendan
job.
Gleeson, Don
Yeah,
Hill
I
Gleason's dad.
Yeah, that's exactly
Right?
how
That's
I
who it is,
pictured.
right?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. That's how I pictured Mad Eye Moody in the books. And because he plays such a large role, it was great to see them nail that casting. My biggest issue with this movie is probably the men's hair. This is the worst part of the film.
It's actually absurd. It's like it's a valid complaint.
Literally Harry Potter in the year that no one cut their fucking hair.
But it's like not even that they didn't cut their hair. It's like that they didn't manage their hair.
Yeah, it's like they
It's
just
weird.
woke up and started filming and did nothing.
It must have just been like the hairstyle of the time, given they all have it.
The volume, though, there was just so much
I know.
volume on their hair.
It's egregious.
Well, I like this one. I think that this one actually has some of the best effects. And I think it,
Mhm.
I actually really, I complained about the set pieces in 7, but in this one, because it is part of this whole, what's it called? The Wizard, Tri-Wizard tournament.
Mhm.
I think
Mhm.
that it makes it a little more fun. I kind of like that it is almost separate from the main story. it's like, oh, everything's kind of cool now, right? Like we're gonna have a normal year, and then by the end, we just get into all right, Wizard Hitler's back. The entire what's it called scene is awesome. From the moment they enter the maze to the Harry returning, incredible. The reaction from Robert Pattinson's dad is great. I think that its biggest strength might also be its biggest weakness, where the biggest strength being, hey, this is just kind of separate from everything else going on. Also sometimes makes it feel a little weird because I'm just like, what are we doing here, guys? Like, is this normal? Are we going to have a normal field trip this time? With the Frizz? No way.
Fair enough. I definitely would echo some of what you guys would say. I think we don't miss out significantly on any major plot points from the book. Obviously, it's a long book, so we do miss on some things, like where's my girl Winky at? If you read the books, you know. Winky is like an alcoholic house elf that Dobby's trying to help. It's kind of funny. I love her.
Well, Dobby in the movies, Dobby disappears until like I swear he's not in. He shows up in 2, and then I don't see him again until 7.
He's in Goblet of Fire.
Well, it feels like I don't see him.
Yeah, he's in a couple of them.
I don't remember him in Goblet of Fire. I don't think he showed up.
I think because he's working in the castle, so he'll like show up with like socks all over his hands and shit.
I don't even.
I mean, in the books he did, but yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, I was gonna say not in the movie.
That's what I'm saying. I'm talking about the movie.
Yeah.
I was also going to say I think that this is very good looking. It's not the best looking of the Harry Potters, but those dragons are pretty sick.
I think all of the effects in this movie are like world class. I think they all look great. I don't think there's a single like CGI moment that looks bad.
And it really has to. It's like very reliant on the effects.
Yeah.
And
I think I wish movies looked like this now.
Well, the Pirates of the Caribbean movies did. It's we say it every time. It's preparation. You have to pre-plan. You have to know what it's going to look like before you into post-production, and you can't change it a bunch.
This looks better than almost every single Marvel movie.
It clearly had very good art direction, and they clearly knew exactly what they wanted it to look like before they even started shooting. They knew what they wanted it to look like in storyboards. I mean, I wasn't in production, but I'll tell you, when it looks this good, that you have to assume that.
Yeah,
that's why the hairstyling was so bad. That's where all the money went.
Yeah, for real.
I also do think this is just like a really fun sports movie, and I think it kind of has some of the like depressing classic Harry Potter shit that will come even more later in the series, but I think it has a lot of levity that is really fun. And I would say when it does take a turn for the depressing and scary, it gets scary. I saw this in theaters. This was the first one I saw in theaters.
What?
Yeah.
I definitely saw 3 in theaters and it scared the piss out of me.
This is the first one I saw in theaters and it scared me. And I do think all of the Voldemort scenes, like the beginning intro scene with him in the house, is really well done, where you don't see Voldemort, you just hear like the whispering and the snake coming at Frank. And then the graveyard scene is obviously iconic, looks great, isn't too dark that you can't see it, scary. And we have to talk about our boy Ralph Fiennes. This is where he first shows up in the series. Right. He looks incredible. They did a really great job with him. And his performance is iconic.
He really does cement like exactly what he's going to be as this character in this movie. And it worked. So
yeah, fabulous casting. Love it. So yeah,
not fabulous casting because I like Ralph Fiennes' leading man. And I feel like he's not allowed to be a leading man anymore because of this.
I don't think he ever really was though.
Okay, well, one of my favorite movies being Grand Budapest. He's a leading man, and I love him in that, so I want it more.
Well, you can tell he's extremely charismatic, even as Voldemort, because I'm like, yes, come back on screen, now!
Yeah. Hannah's about to pledge herself. I mean, she was a Slytherin, so...
I was not going to pledge myself to Voldemort, but I would pledge myself to Ralph Fiennes. Okay, so yeah, we all had Goblet of Fire there. We all liked it, but not love. What... So now we're getting third place.
Now we're getting into like, okay, the cream of the crop.
Yes.
Here. Okay. I have the Sorcerer's Stone as my third place.
Same.
Whoa. We might.
I
think we're gonna have the same top 4. This is crazy. I will say I think it's just like started it all. It starts the magic. I feel like it's a perfect introduction to what you're gonna get from this world. It's a great hero origin story, especially in the kid actors crushed it. I mean, like it's really impressive what they got out of these 3, especially just to nail it like this on first try. I think it is just enough to like bring you in, not too much to be like completely outlandish, just pulls you into this like amazing magical world. And it's a tight story. I mean, again, the only book I've read, I feel like they actually didn't have a ton to work with because it is short and quick and childish. And like, I feel like they made something beyond a children's book with this movie. And boy, oh boy, are those, the unicorn scene is scary.
Yeah, I agree.
And Voldemort in the back of the head. That's like, you gotta love, we need more nightmare fuel for children. Like, we're missing that currently. Like, I love Courage the Cowardly Dog. Grew up watching that, scared me. Some of the Scooby-Doo episodes and movies scared me. Like, children need horror in their media that they don't expect that's going to scar them, you know, that for life. It makes you stronger.
I did love how cheery and upbeat this whole movie is until it's like, bam!
Yeah.
Evil villain.
It's scary. Well, I would also say the unicorn blood being drank. And they're like, what would do that? And it was fucking Voldemort on the back of the head, a coral drinking a unicorn's blood like a vampire. Like, holy shit. So that's my main thing. Sorry, I talked a little too much, but I think it really just is the great taste to suck you into this world.
Yeah, I think the initial world building is excellent. I think everything looks good. I think it does have a really good pacing. I would say there are no complaints that I really have about the pacing. Not that I rewatched this for this, but I can't think of any scenes that I would think like needed to be cut or anything. And yeah, I think all the performances are great, especially for 10 and 11-year-olds.
This thing also just hauls ass near the end. The second that they, you know, beat Fluffy to get into the trials. I wish they did all of the trials like in the book because I thought that was really cool in the book. It just moves.
Yeah.
And you really just learn about all these characters through it so much. And these are some brave kids.
Kiana, anything to add?
Yeah, sorry, Kiana. I get excited.
No. Oh, good. No, I definitely agree that this was the perfect introduction to the world. Maybe it's a lot of nostalgia, but I feel like this film holds a pretty special place for me, especially because this was like I didn't think I would like Harry Potter when I was little. And then I read the first book because I was forced to read during like, what was it called? Like sustained reading time in elementary school. Pick this one, immediately watch the movie. Yeah, I agree that the kids, this is when they're still really cute, that even if they aren't the best actors, it doesn't quite matter at this point. Till they grow up, then you kind of see a little more issues. But you know, they're all perfectly casted based on looks and personalities at this stage. And then Richard Harris was an amazing Dumbledore. I think he really kind of had that grandfatherly vibe that Dumbledore has in the first two movies. Yeah, I don't really have any like negatives to add about this movie. It was a solid film.
Yeah, I really don't either. So let's move on to our number 2. Kiana, why don't you tell us your number 2? I think it's going to be the same for all of us, but...
I think so. Order of the Phoenix, which you guys may have picked as number 2 as well.
We did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, as this being one of my favorite books, it's probably no surprise that this is my second favorite movie. Yeah, I mean, gotta give it to Umbridge. I don't know the actress's name. I feel like she always plays like the most hated woman. But exceptional casting. You hate her so much, which means you know she played the role to perfection. And the fight scene in the Ministry is really beautiful when all the prophecies are falling around them. And I think this is the first time you see Dumbledore versus Voldemort. I think the movie did it justice, in my opinion. And then everything about the end is just great. Like, even though I think some people think it's kind of corny, I do like the scene when Voldemort's trying to possess Harry and he's able to fight him off because of how he feels towards all his friends and family that Voldemort will never feel. And then obviously,
I think it's thematically important, even if it might look corny.
Also, these books are corny. They're young, based on YA novels.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
You know what? Some people say corny. I just say it emotionally resonates.
Fair. And Daniel Radcliffe's performance when Sirius dies, I think he captured that grief really well. And I think I read, I don't know if it's true, but I read somewhere that like, I think his grandma died before he filmed this scene. So he was really able to, that could just be some like, you know, one of those fake things people make up about actors.
Aww.
But did a great job.
Yeah. Imelda Staunton is Dolores Umbridge, and she killed it. She was so good. Literally one of my top villains of all time. She's awful.
It's actually like hard to watch this movie because of like how awful she
She's
is.
sinister.
Like it's really like I get angry watching this movie, and this is the flaw of letting movies affect me the way I do. Is I'm like actually pissed off watching this. I also think Harry being gaslit.
It's hard to watch.
Really makes it hard in a good way. But I will also say anyone complaining about angry Harry, like just watch this movie because I get fucking pissed. Like I'm ready to start a revolution in the Room of Requirement as well. Like I'm like this movie is maybe the most like anti-fascist movie in my mind because I want to kill this woman. Like I want a bullet in her head when I watch it. Like, you know, is that illegal at Hogwarts campus? Can you, like, wizards don't stop Glocks. Yeah, that's what they like. All right, we might get in trouble on YouTube for that one, but yeah, that's a big part. I think this movie is very good looking in comparison. I will also say I think that these top two movies actually make the other movies look a lot worse because of the things they do so well. This being, I think this one had a different writer. You said, right, Hannah? This is the only one with a different writer.
Yes.
And I think you can really tell because I think the direction this story moves feels very different than the others. That's what I said earlier as well. You gotta love just them building Dumbledore's army. I think that whole thing's cool. It really is like it is kind of anti-fascism propaganda here, whatever we call it. I don't know if I call it propaganda, but it is like, you know, organize and revolt, which is pretty sweet. And then another thing that I think makes the other movies look worse is that you actually get a real wizard fight instead of just zip, like lasers flying by. You get what a real wizard fight should look like between Dumbledore and Voldemort, where they're doing just insane feats, turning glass into bubbles, like calling in dragon fire, whatever it is, dragons made of fire, and like countering each other. And I feel like that's what wizard fights should always look like. Yeah. And it's a shame that we just get lasers, pew-pews.
Yeah.
I don't think there's another fight like that in the entire series.
And it's really a mistake that there isn't.
Yeah. Huge mistake. Absolutely love that scene. I think that scene looks great. I would echo pretty much everything you guys have said. I would also add that it takes an awful long, like I like the book, but it's egregiously long. It's the longest book and slow source material. As much as I like it, it is a little slow and it improves upon the pacing. I don't really have any issues with pacing in this movie that I can remember. I do think there's like it moves at like a decent pace and still is able to get across the emotional storyline that we need. Like thematically, we're still getting that from just being a viewer, not a reader. And I think this shit knows how to tug at your heartstrings really effectively. Yeah, when Sirius dies, when Sirius says, "Nice one, James," first time I saw that, I was like kind of butthurt about it for some reason. And then my mom, when my aunt died, like used to call me my aunt's name like all the time. And then I was like, oh, I get it.
Yeah.
Like that's what he's doing there, because I reminded my mom of my aunt and like that relationship. It like makes me kind of want to tear up. I think that whole scene is really great. I think, like you said, Daniel Radcliffe's performance, like reacting to that loss, is done really well. I love Helena Bonham Carter in this one.
This is where she gets introduced, right? Yeah, she rocks. I kill.
She's
Sirius
an evil
Black.
bitch, and it's great.
And I don't love her as an actress, except I do love her in this.
Yeah, she's
amazing as Bellatrix.
She's fine. I think I used to like her more, and maybe
you liked her more because of these, and then you've seen her in too many musicals. That's your problem.
That might be the issue. I like musicals though. Just
you don't like her in musicals because she's not that good a singer.
I agree. I am still thinking about how this movie just make me want to organize. This is like a complete how to do civil disobedience when unethical things are happening. Like, love that.
I think it's really relevant to today's age, which is definitely not what you know who intended, but
yeah.
And it is pretty unfortunate that it is relevant. But
Yeah, and I do think that she usually has like a pretty how do I explain, like moderate liberal mindset on things, like and usually like a pretty weak like let's go with the status quo kind of way. And this is the one movie that I think really is like, no, like do some crime, like firebomb a Walmart a little bit, you know, like, and that's kind of cool. I don't know if she intended that, but
that's what the Weasley twins essentially do. They firebomb Umbridge.
Yeah, it is kind of just saying like, hey, sometimes you have to like kill your enemies. That's how this goes. You have to kill the fascists sometimes, or at least try to bring them down. All right. Well, I want to get on to number one, which we all have is the same, which I'm not surprised by.
Prisoner of Azkaban.
And it's because this movie, I will just say right now, Kiana, I want to know if you agree, is like leagues ahead of all of the other movies. And that's not to say the other ones aren't good. It's just that this one is that good.
Well, I think that's what happens when you have like an extremely renowned, talented director take the helm.
Yep.
I think his biggest Oscar wins came after this. But I mean, watch Gravity and Roma and you'll get it. Yeah. And I think you see that similar style brought to Prisoner of Azkaban. I think it has the most style, the way it's shot, the way the camera moves, the cinematography.
It's easily the most distinct.
Yes.
It's easily the most distinct. It's the most horror feeling one to me. I consider this a Halloween movie.
It's certainly the best visually, in my opinion.
Yes. And it's because you just have like an actual expert, complete expert behind the camera. But Kiana, tell us a little bit, because I got plenty to say about this one.
Yeah. I mean, this is also the introduction to the Dementors, and I think they are perfectly done. I know there are definitely scenes in the whole series where the CGI is a little off, but the Dementors are perfect. They are terrifying. I feel like they really elicit that fear when they come around and the feeling of depression and coldness when they're nearby. And then you have obviously some of the fan favorite characters like Lupin and Sirius being introduced, and they just have such great backstories that I feel like even with a weaker director, people were going to love this one no matter what. And the Pettigrew reveal, which when I was a kid genuinely shocked me.
I would say the first big plot twist is probably, obviously all of them have like a big plot twist at the end. I would say Diary being Voldemort is a big plot twist, but I would say the biggest plot twist at this point in the series is definitely Peter Pettigrew.
Or Sirius not being a bad guy after everything's.
Yeah.
Oh my God, this movie is magic. I am thinking about so many things. So that plot twist you're talking about, I think is the best scene in the entire Harry Potter franchise.
Where they're arguing,
where it's revealed, where Harry's all confused, like the dumbass he is, and they're arguing, and it's shot. The scene was clearly written well, but it's shot in a way that is so uncomfortable. It's grimy. They're sweating. We're getting some of these canted shots or like Dutch angles, like showing them. It feels like something evil is going to happen. And then it's revealed that like, no, these are good guys. Like, and they really made Sirius Black, Gary Oldman just look awful and like just disgusting. And this scene just is such a masterclass in building tension. It just is by far, I think, the best scene in this entire series. And obviously ends with Peter Pettigrew, or the rat, turning into, what's the rat's name? I can't remember.
Oh,
Scabbers
turning into Peter Pettigrew. And then it just accelerates from this point on, because everything goes wrong when Lupin turns into a werewolf. And I feel like it completely rocks.
That's a fucking scary werewolf design too.
I feel like I don't want to say realistic, but looks more similar to, I think, how werewolves are typically described in media.
Certainly no Twilight werewolf.
Yep. They're supposed to be kind of this like humanoid, scrawny, like walks on hind legs. Like it is, I think, a great example. The whole movie's amazing. The Dementors are scary. They made me pee my pants in the theater.
I would say this movie also has excellent world building. I think the biggest amount of world building in the books comes at Order of the Phoenix for like the larger wizarding world outside of Hogwarts and outside of the games. But I do think that this movie really starts introducing some of that world building by giving us like a deeper look at even what life in the school might be like. Like it shows the choir with the frog. And as much as you might think that might be silly or dumb, I think it's like a cute little quirky like film
And
moment.
it doesn't
I think,
slow the movie down at all.
No.
It's just there.
it just
and
gives you like a little style, little flavor for what this world looks like outside of being a little student who's dumb.
This one, and as the big film fan here, this one is the one that feels the most like a movie, if that makes sense. This feels like it could stand alone completely to me, and I love it. I'm going to say two more things. I'm talking a lot. I'm sorry. One, I'll give credit to whoever wrote these books. This is the best on-screen time travel.
You said books?
Books, yeah. I'm giving credit to whoever did it. I don't know who it is. Best on-screen time travel, best written time travel, in that it is everything that happens in the time travel has already happened. So it's perfect loop. There's no paradoxes. It works perfectly that you went back in time because you had always gone back in time. And the reveal of Harry saying, yeah, my dad showed up to save me, and then being like, wait, no, it was me, is this really important thematic moment for Harry and like believing in himself. And it looks cool as hell, and it feels cool as hell. And then the last thing I have to say, I'm sorry, is I leave this movie grinning ear to ear because Alfonso does this really fucked up thing at the end. So there's an effect throughout the movie where when Harry is getting the Dementor's kiss or whatever, you see his face is getting like distorted. You know what I'm talking about, Kiana?
Yes.
And at the end of this movie, he gets his like one little good thing. The cool broom shows up. He's flying away. He's screaming. And Alfonso does this insane thing. It's actually a completely insane thing where Harry flies at the camera screaming like in joy, and it freeze frames on him and his face is getting pulled and distorted from like the speed, but it reminds you of the Dementor thing to say like the evil is not gone. It's still here. And we know that once we get to the fourth one, but I just think it's a really amazing movie magic moment for me.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think there's much more to add on how amazing this film was shot. I feel like you've touched on all of it.
I'm sorry. I get really excited about this movie. And that ending thing, I think people don't think about a lot. And it's something that like really, the first time I noticed, I was like, holy shit, like this guy's a madman. It's so stupid, but it like really works for me. Is there anything you want to say, Hannah, or did I talk too much?
You said a lot, and I agree with all of it. I will say this, like all of the others for the most part, has really iconic casting. I know we've said that the Marauders are too old, but let's be real, David Thewlis and Gary Oldman are pretty perfect. They have really great chemistry together on screen. And I do think you kind of fall in love with those characters pretty immediately. And part of that is the writing and the screenplay. And part of that is their performances. They're really endearing and charismatic.
Well, don't forget about the director in there.
Yeah.
He does it too.
Well, I also just think listening to some interviews with the cast about what they said that Alfonso said is really funny. This one's a little odd, but I guess David Thewlis said that Alfonso was like, your character's gay. Play him like he's gay. And he was kind of like, what would I do differently? But also...
Wait, no, that makes total sense, though.
I do, from what Alfonso probably had read up until this point, I would probably think Lupin is also gay.
It's because he's playing werewolf. Are you following my logic here or no?
Right.
Well,
Are
werewolves consistently seen as representative
Isn't that werewolves like is often alluded to as AIDS or something? I feel like I've read that somewhere.
Yes, partially. Yes.
So that's really problematic.
I would say it's a little problematic, but no, it's more about that if he's playing a closeted gay man, that is very similar to, I think, the werewolf in this, that he has a secret that he's holding on to.
I love that.
His part of him, his real self has to be like hidden, and he has to present himself differently because it's not accepted to be a werewolf in this world. Mm-hmm. So it would make sense for Alfonso to say, especially at the time that this was filmed where it was more accepted, but not still widely accepted, to pretend like you're a closeted gay man makes complete sense to me. If you go the AIDS route, then yeah, I mean that, but werewolves existed way longer before AIDS was a thing,
I know,
right?
But In
But
modern times,
in modern time, they've
they
used it
are
that way.
very correlated in media. And if you
But
think
he's
about,
not negative. It would be worse if, say, being a werewolf was a bad thing. Like,
well, it is a horrible thing in this universe.
oh, that's not on Alfonso then.
No, it's not on Alfonso. I'm
Yeah.
not saying it's on Alfonso. I am giving credit to the original writer of this series. Extremely problematic in that the big bad werewolf of the series prefers to attack young women and children.
Huh. Well,
so
werewolves.
what are they saying about LGBTQ
If
folks
that's
then?
what she's trying to say, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I
Well,
will
it's
just say-
unconscious. It
Yeah,
might
it
not
could
be
be unconscious
conscious, but
bias.
there's a lot of unconscious bias in these series. Not that that's super relevant to this particular movie, but I did feel like I needed to say it because it pisses me off to no end.
You're forgetting a big part, though. Outside of these books, werewolves rock.
That's true.
So, like, have you considered that? Kiana, back me up here, all right?
It's true.
I mean, I feel like most of my werewolf media has been Twilight, so I don't know
Oh my
if I would agree with
God.
that.
The My Werewolf media is I thought of werewolves in my head.
have y'all seen Teen Wolf?
Oh my
How about
No.
that?
Maybe werewolf media doesn't rock, but the idea of werewolves,
The
the story
idea
of
of
werewolves
werewolves
is so fun.
cool. Yeah.
It's like the coolest shit.
Well,
we gotta watch like the Wolfman or something.
this movie, I would say, did werewolves really cool.
Yes, it
Yeah.
did.
Everything about this movie, pretty perfect. Love it.
Was there anything else funny that Alfonso said, or was that the main
That's
thing?
the thing I remember offhand because I didn't do any research for this
Oh, that's
episode
okay.
at all.
You've read the books enough times and watched the movies enough times. You're your own research here.
Yeah. Overall, just wanted to acknowledge that I do think throughout the films that the casting is pretty iconic. Like we said, Alan Rickman, Gary Oldman, Kenneth Branagh, Helena Bonham Carter, Maggie Smith, Emma Thompson, David Thewlis. The list goes on and on.
David Tennant,
Yeah.
he's
like
barely in it.
Brendan Gleeson, Domhnall Gleeson.
Yep.
Yeah, we get a ton of extremely talented people in the series, and I think
we
that's
ever
a
say
major
Emma
strength
Watson's
to all
name?
of them.
Probably
She's
should
kind of
say her name.
stinky.
Oh well, but yeah, come on.
I didn't say any of the kids.
Oh,
Pay
true.
attention. I also did want to note, based off our rankings, David Yates did 4 movies. 3 of his 4 movies we all put in our bottom 3
Woo!
or bottom 4.
Tough. He did not have the easiest job, but
Rough run.
I just think he's not clearly it's like not a very inspired director in these movies. They feel very I don't want to call them schlocky, but they feel run of the mill. And that's kind of where we were at the time when it came to franchise films. Like they weren't really the magic that they were to start. So
Any other major takeaways we want to discuss before we close this one out?
I
no,
think
I just
so.
want to talk
think
about
we
3
hit-
more. Sorry, Kiana, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just saying. I think we hit all of the major points.
Yeah.
I think we did.
Well, this was a very fun episode. I've been looking forward to this one for a long time. Shout out to Harry. It's his birthday today, actually, the day of release. So that's fun. Other than that, thank you for hopping on, Kiana.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for finally having me on your show.
Finally.
It was very fun.
Oh, I enjoyed talking about it. I could just talk about 3. We could just cover 3 and as a whole movie. So maybe we can consider that for Halloween.
Ooh,
It's a Halloweeny movie.
I would love that. Kiana, come back.
It's
All right, I'll mark my calendar.
I might have said it all already. Unfortunately, I got excited. I try not to word vomit. I think I was articulate, but
But
I was too
still
hyped.
vomity.
I was too hyped about 3.
All right. Well, that's all for today. Again, thanks, Kiana. I've been Hannah.
I've been Matt Hannah.
Bye.
We're out of here.
Bye.
Avada Kedavra.
Thank you for listening to Horror Hour with the Hannahs. Make sure to listen to future episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, or wherever you can find podcasts. You can follow us at Horror Hour with the Hannahs on TikTok and Instagram for more content. If you like the podcast, please follow and leave a review on your favorite podcasting app. Happy hauntings!